There comes a moment in a person's life when the damage is not dramatic enough to alarm anyone else, but deep enough that you can no longer ignore it. You wake up and nothing is technically wrong. You are functioning, you are answering messages, you are showing up, you are even making plans. But underneath that surface, something has thinned out. Your patience is weaker than it used to be. Your attention is fractured. Your standards are negotiable. The things you once said mattered to you now get postponed, diluted, or abandoned in silence. And the most disturbing part is not that this is happening, it is how normal it has started to feel. A lot of decline does not arrive like a collapse. It arrives like accommodation. It arrives like a private deal you keep making with yourself. One more delay, one more excuse, one more day spent in ways you know are beneath you. And then, one day you look at your life and realize the punishment was never sudden. It was cumulative. This is what most people learn too late. Not because the lessons were hidden, but because they were expensive. And life does not wait for you to become ready for truths that were always true. Lately, I have been thinking about how much time people lose, not because they lack intelligence, but because they keep delaying hard truths. I have felt that in my own life too, not in some theatrical way, in a quieter way, in the way regret actually forms through ignored instincts, repeated compromises, wasted mornings, wrong priorities, and the dangerous habit of telling yourself you still have more time than you really do. That is where the false cure begins. You feel uneasy, so you reach for relief. You feel behind, so you tell yourself you need more time to think. You feel emotionally weak, so you call avoidance healing. You feel afraid to move, so you rename hesitation as wisdom. You feel tired of conflict, so you call self-silencing maturity. And slowly, almost elegantly, you start cooperating with the very habits that are diminishing you. Lesson 1. What soothes you is not always what saves you. That is one of the first lessons most people learn too late. Because modern life is full of substitutes that feel like medicine but behave like poison. Distraction feels like recovery. Indulgence feels like self-compassion. Numbness feels like peace. Passivity feels like patience. And endless analysis feels like responsibility. But many of these are not forms of care, they are forms of retreat. There was a time when I used to justify hesitation as being careful. It sounded intelligent. It sounded mature. It gave fear a respectable voice. But much of the time, it was not care. It was fear of judgment, fear of making the wrong move, fear of committing fully to the life I knew I should be living. That is how self-betrayal often speaks. Not in obvious lies. In reasonable language, you say you are waiting for clarity, but what you are really waiting for is the disappearance of uncertainty, and that will never come. So you remain suspended, half committed, half honest, half alive. Look closely at the daily pattern. You know the conversation you need to have, but you postpone it. You know the work that matters, but you scroll first. You know the standard you should live by, but you lower it in small, private moments where no one is watching. Then, at the end of the day, you wonder why you feel weak, because weakness is not only built by failure, it is built by repeated refusal. And if you keep calling that refusal rest, caution, healing, or patience, you will protect the very thing that is draining your life. This is where Stoicism enters, not to comfort you, but to judge the story you have been telling yourself. Marcus Aurelius did not write like a man trying to be admired. He wrote like a man trying to govern himself. His words carry a certain severity because he understood something most people spend years resisting. Your mind can become a conspirator against your own life if you do not train it. Lesson 2. Your feelings are real, but they are not authority. That lesson arrives late for many people because they confuse intensity with truth. If an emotion is strong, they assume it must be obeyed. If a thought repeats itself, they assume it must mean something. If fear appears, they treat it like a warning from reality rather than a sensation passing through the nervous system. Epictetus cuts through that confusion with brutal precision. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. That is not a soft idea, it is a demanding one. It means the insult is not the whole injury, your interpretation completes it. It means uncertainty is not the whole suffering, your resistance multiplies it. It means disappointment is not what breaks you, the story you attach to it is what enters your blood. Lesson 3. Pain is inevitable, self-pity is a choice. Seneca understood this deeply. He knew that suffering has layers. There is the event itself, and then there is the performance we build around it, the replaying, the dramatizing, the hidden pleasure of saying, "Look what life has done to me." That is why so many people stay stuck in emotional loops, not because they enjoy pain, but because pain can become identity. And identity is hard to surrender, even when it is costing you peace. Stoicism does not ask you to become cold, it asks you to become accurate. You are tired? Then say you are tired. Do not call it surrender. You are hurt? Then say you are hurt. Do not turn it into a lifelong permission slip for bitterness. You are afraid? Then say you are afraid. Do not dress fear in the language of wisdom and call it restraint. The Stoic judgment is harsh only to illusion. To the honest person, it is a form of liberation. Because once you stop exaggerating what is happening inside you, you recover your power to respond. And without that, there is no character, only reaction. Now we come to the slow-burning forces that weaken a person long before they destroy him. Not all ruin is loud. Some ruin glows quietly. Some ruin feels warm. Some ruin asks for nothing more than your permission to continue. The first fire is comfort. The second is resentment. The third is performance. And most people do not understand how much of their life is being consumed by these fires until they have already paid years to them. Lesson 4. Comfort becomes dangerous when it starts replacing self-respect. Comfort, in itself, is not evil. Rest matters. Relief matters. A nervous system cannot live in constant battle. But comfort becomes corrupt when it stops being recovery and starts becoming your ruling value. When every decision is filtered through ease, you do not become peaceful. You become fragile. This is one of the great modern seductions. A life engineered to remove friction at every level. Food without restraint. Entertainment without limit. Opinion without consequence. Pleasure without effort. Convenience without discipline. And after enough of this, people start mistaking low resistance for a good life. It is not a good life. It is an unstimulating one, a softened one, a life where desire is strong and command is weak. You see it in small things first. A person cannot sit in silence for 10 minutes, cannot endure boredom without reaching for a screen, cannot keep a promise to himself for more than 3 days, cannot tolerate discomfort without renegotiating his values. And because the damage is gradual, he does not notice what is leaving him. Endurance leaves first, then seriousness, then confidence. Because confidence is not built by affirming yourself in comfort, it is built by surviving your own resistance. Marcus Aurelius understood that the soul is dyed by the color of its thoughts, but it is also shaped by the conditions it repeatedly submits to. If you repeatedly train yourself to flee discomfort, do not be surprised when hard things begin to feel impossible. The emotional cost of this fire is quiet shame. The practical cost is inconsistency. The spiritual cost is that you stop seeing yourself as someone who can be trusted. And once a man does not trust himself, he becomes vulnerable to every mood, every appetite, every excuse. That is what comfort destroys when it is worshipped. Not your edge, your authority. Lesson 5. Resentment makes you serve what hurt you. There are people who spend years thinking they are protecting themselves by holding on to anger. What they are actually doing is kneeling to the past. Resentment is a strange fire because it feels powerful while it is consuming you. It gives structure to disappointment. It gives language to wounded pride. It lets you feel morally superior while remaining emotionally imprisoned. You replay what was said, what was not said, what they should have done, what you deserved. The apology that never came, the recognition that was withheld, the betrayal that rearranged your trust. And because the pain was real, the resentment feels justified. That is what makes it dangerous. It borrows legitimacy from the original wound. But Stoicism asks a harder question. Even if your anger is justified, what is it making of you? Seneca wrote often about anger because he understood its intoxicating nature. Anger feels like strength to those who have not learned self-command. But anger that stays becomes governance by injury. You think you are remembering what happened. In truth, you are renewing it every day, inside your own body, inside your own thoughts, inside your own future. Modern resentment has many disguises. It appears as cynicism. It appears as sarcasm. It appears as chronic distrust. It appears as the inability to celebrate another person's success because some older wound still insists that life has been unfair to you. And maybe it has. But unfairness does not become less destructive just because you memorize it. The emotional cost of resentment is heaviness. The practical cost is distorted judgment. The spiritual cost is that your inner life begins orbiting a person, event, or injustice that no longer deserves that kind of power. Forgiveness, in the Stoic sense, is not sentimental, it is strategic. It is the refusal to let pain keep dictating who you become. Because if your peace depends on the repentance of others, you have handed your mind to unstable hands. That is too expensive. Lesson 6. The need to be seen will make you betray what needs to be built. This fire burns hottest now because almost everything in modern life rewards display. Not depth, not integrity. Display. People want to look disciplined before they are disciplined. They want to appear wise before they have endured enough to become wise. They want visible progress, visible virtue, visible suffering, visible growth. Everything becomes theater. Even pain becomes branding. Even healing becomes identity. Even simplicity becomes performance. This is why approval seeking has become such a corrosive force. It teaches people to consult the crowd before consulting conscience, and once you live that way long enough, you no longer ask, "Is this right?" You ask, "How will this be received?" That question will hollow you out. Epictetus warned against wanting to seem philosophical rather than to be transformed. It is an old problem wearing modern clothes. A person starts curating a self instead of governing a life. He says what sounds strong, posts what looks disciplined, signals what appears deep, but in private he is still ruled by impulses he has never confronted, still afraid of silence, still dependent on validation, still rearranging his identity around the reactions of others. The emotional cost of this fire is inner instability. The practical cost is wasted energy. The spiritual cost is fragmentation, the exhausting split between what you project and what you actually are. And eventually, you begin to feel a very specific kind of loneliness. Not the loneliness of being unseen, the loneliness of being seen inaccurately because you helped build the disguise. That is when the performance starts to taste like grief. Because now you are not only far from your purpose, you are far from yourself. There is a moment that does not always look dramatic from the outside, but inside, it changes the entire moral atmosphere of a life. It is the moment you stop using softer names for the habits that are weakening you. Lesson 7. The life you tolerate teaches you who you are. That lesson usually arrives late because most people assume identity is built by intention. It is not. It is built by tolerated behavior, by what you repeatedly allow, by what you excuse, by what you continue doing after you already know better. There was a point in my own life when something became painfully clear. Regret rarely arrives all at once. It builds quietly, through wasted mornings, through wrong priorities, through ignored standards, through the slow addiction to the idea that there is still time. That realization is not cinematic when it happens. It is almost humiliating in its simplicity. You look at your life and see that the greatest theft was not done by enemies, bad luck, or lack of potential. It was done by compromise. Your compromise, your willingness to keep negotiating with what you knew was beneath you. This is the hinge, because from here, one of two things happens. Either you keep protecting the habits that are weakening you, and life becomes narrower, duller, more regretful, or you accept that some truths only stop hurting once you start obeying them. You realize your exhaustion is not only from doing too much, it is from carrying what should have been ended sooner. You realize your anxiety is not only from uncertainty, it is from self-division. You realize your low confidence is not a mystery. It is the natural consequence of repeatedly watching yourself abandon what you claim matters. This is what moral clarity feels like. Not self-hatred, not collapse. A clean refusal. A refusal to keep participating in your own decline. And once that refusal becomes sincere, discipline no longer feels like punishment. It feels like the first honest thing you have done in a long time. Now, the rebuilding begins. Not in slogans, not in fantasy, in practice. Because the person who wants a stronger life but refuses stronger habits does not want transformation. He wants reward without rebirth. And there is no Stoic path around that. If character is to be forged, it must pass through heat. 3 chambers, 3 tests, 3 ways of becoming someone your future will not have to recover from. Lesson 8. Not every thought deserves a seat at the table. Most people are ruled by inner speech they have never examined. A thought appears, I am behind, I am failing, they disrespected me, I cannot handle this, I need to respond now, I need relief now, and the body reacts as if a verdict has been delivered. This is where Stoic training begins. In the space between impression and consent, that space is tiny at first. For many people, it barely exists. Thought becomes feeling, feeling becomes action, action becomes consequence, all in one chain. But a disciplined mind learns to interrupt, to say, this is an impression, not a command. This is a surge, not a truth. This is ego, demanding attention, not wisdom giving direction. One habit helped me profoundly here. Before reacting, I started asking a harder question. Will this matter in a year, or is this just my ego demanding attention? That question changed how I handled conflict, disappointment, and emotional provocation. Because it pulled me out of immediacy. It forced proportion back into the room. And proportion is one of the most powerful forms of strength. A weak mind lives in whatever feels urgent. A tempered mind decides what is worthy. So when insult comes, do not instantly merge with it. When fear comes, do not instantly kneel to it. When dark thoughts come, do not instantly decorate them with belief. Observe, name, reframe, proceed. This is not suppression. It is governance. And without governance, freedom is impossible. Lesson 9. A disordered day becomes a disordered life. People like talking about purpose because it sounds elevated. But much of life is not lost at the level of purpose. It is lost at the level of routine. late nights that weaken the next morning, mornings wasted in passivity, hours broken by distraction, bodies undertrained, promises postponed, work done without full attention, rest taken without intention. This is how years disappear, not always through catastrophe, through loose structure. Stoicism becomes credible when it enters the schedule, when it touches sleep, when it touches food, when it touches movement, when it touches work, when it touches the first hour of the morning and the last hour of the night. Because if your philosophy cannot survive contact with your calendar, it is decoration. A strong person does not need every day to feel inspired. He needs the day to be ordered enough that what matters gets done whether inspiration shows up or not. That means you stop asking your mood for permission. You build repeatable standards. Wake when you said you would wake. Do the work before the easier escape routes open. Train the body so the mind remembers what effort feels like. Protect deep attention as if it were a sacred resource, because it is. End the day in a way that does not sabotage the next one. These are not glamorous acts. They are better than glamorous. They are cumulative. They restore integrity in places where life was previously leaking. And once routine begins reflecting your values, a new kind of confidence appears. Not loud confidence, clean confidence. The confidence of a man whose private life is no longer in open rebellion against his stated beliefs. Lesson 10. Your character is revealed where comfort, control, and applause disappear. Anyone can seem composed when life is cooperative. Anyone can speak about principles when nothing is provoking them. The real test comes under pressure. Rejection, insult, boredom, loneliness, uncertainty, delay, loss, the plan failing, the text unanswered, the door closing, the future refusing to explain itself. This is where Stoicism becomes either real or imaginary. Can you hold your standards when no one is rewarding you? Can you stay measured when disrespected? Can you remain faithful to the work when progress is invisible? Can you endure loneliness without rushing into unworthy company just to escape yourself? Can you bear uncertainty without manufacturing panic as a substitute for control? Marcus Aurelius wrote to himself constantly because he knew pressure reveals the gaps in self-command. Under stress, the untrained person becomes whatever the moment demands. The trained person remembers who he decided to be before the moment arrived. That is a profound difference. Weak behavior says, "Because I was hurt, I am permitted to lose myself." Disciplined behavior says, "Because I was tested, I have a chance to prove myself." Weak behavior says, "If life is unfair, I can be careless." Disciplined behavior says, "Unfairness is not my permission slip to become lesser." Weak behavior searches for immediate discharge. Disciplined behavior protects long-term dignity. And that dignity matters. Because when pressure passes, and it will, what remains is your conduct. That is what you have to live with. That is what shapes identity. That is what either hardens respect or deepens regret. The shape of a stronger person. What kind of person emerges from this forge? Not a perfect one. Not a numb one. Not a performative stoic who pretends to be untouched by life. A stronger person is someone whose inner world is no longer easy to invade. Someone who still feels deeply but does not drown in every feeling. Someone who still experiences fear but does not let fear write policy. Someone who still gets hurt but refuses to build a home inside the injury. Someone who has stopped needing every day to feel good in order to live well. This person becomes quieter in a powerful way, less eager to explain himself, less addicted to being understood by everyone, less reactive to disrespect. less desperate for speed, praise, and visible proof. He becomes difficult to manipulate because he is no longer bargaining with every discomfort. He becomes difficult to distract because he has made decisions about what matters. He becomes difficult to shame because he is already engaged in honest self-correction. And peace begins to change its meaning. It is no longer the peace of escape, not the peace of numbing out, not the peace of lowered standards. It becomes the peace earned by alignment. The peace of knowing your actions are no longer constantly betraying your values. The peace of restraint. The peace of proportion. The peace of a mind that no longer believes every threat, every appetite, every grievance, every invitation to become smaller. That kind of peace has weight to it. It does not feel soft. It feels clean. And there are habits that start becoming unworthy of such a person. Self-pity becomes unworthy. Chronic excuse-making becomes unworthy. Performing growth instead of practicing it becomes unworthy. Feeding distractions that drain your will becomes unworthy. Giving your best energy to trivial conflicts becomes unworthy. Living for approval becomes unworthy. You do not abandon these things because someone shamed you out of them. You abandon them because they no longer fit the person you are becoming. That is one of the deepest transformations available to a human being. When discipline stops feeling like restriction and starts feeling like self-respect. So, here is the law. Life punishes what we refuse to learn. It punishes delayed honesty. It punishes ego without discipline. It punishes comfort without standards. It punishes resentment that is mistaken for strength. It punishes performance that replaces substance. It punishes days lived as if time was still unlimited. And sooner or later, it presents the bill. Not always in catastrophe, often in a colder form. A life that could have been stronger, cleaner, truer, but was not. The good news is this. If you can see the lie, you are not trapped in it. If you can name the habit, you can confront it. If you can feel the weight of wasted time, you are still alive enough to stop adding to it. But understanding is nothing without embodiment. Wisdom admired is still weakness if it never enters conduct. The lesson means nothing until it changes the day, until it changes the next decision, until it changes the standard you are no longer willing to betray. So if this resonated, like the video, comment with the line or insight that hit you hardest, and subscribe for grounded Stoic philosophy and self-mastery content built for people who are finished with excuses and ready for a harder, cleaner way to live. Do not protect the habits that are weakening you. Do not call delay wisdom. Do not call fear carefulness. Do not call self-betrayal complexity. Stand up in your own life. Hold the line. And remember this: the man you become is shaped less by what you know and more by what you refuse to excuse. Become the master of your mind. Rebuild, refocus, rise.